The first formal legislative power exercised by FDR was the power to convene Congress when they have gone into recess. On March 5th of 1933, FDR summoned Congress to a special session that would come to be known as the 100 Days Session. At the end of these first 100 days, it became clear to FDR that the temporary emergency relief measures that had been adopted were not going to be sufficient. The new need for long-term legislation was embodied in Roosevelt's 1935 State of the Union Address. Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution grants the President the formal power to annually give a State of the Union address and to recommend any legislative measures he deems necessary. Herbert Hoover, FDR's predecessor, simply wrote out his State of the Unions, and copies were given to congressmen. When it came time for FDR to address the State of the Union, however, he decided to exercise the informal legislative power of orally delivering his State of the Union before media and Congress. On January 4th of 1935, FDR orally delivered his annual State of the Union, using it as an opportunity to direct national attention away from temporary relief measures and towards the need for long-term measures like his Social Security bill. In doing so, he was able to set the national legislative agenda on his terms. He recommended the orderly liquidation of relief agencies, saying, "The federal government must and shall quit this business of relief." He spoke of the need for security against the major hazards and vicissitudes of life, and went on to say that he would soon submit to Congress a broad program designed to ultimately establish all these factors of security. This speech, which put Social Security on the national agenda, is a prime example of a president using the informal legislative power to orally deliver a State of the Union. Once Social Security had made it onto the national agenda, and FDR had appointed Francis Perkins to draft the bill, FDR exercised his informal powers to play inside and outside hardball in order to get the legislation passed by Congress. FDR was no novice when it came to playing inside hardball. During his first 100 days, he had used quid pro quo hardball tactics, dangling patronage promises before congressmen, but not delivering on these promises until his legislation had been enacted. FDR also used agents, well-respected people like Tommy Corcoran, to advocate for his measures before Congress. FDR continued using these same inside hardball techniques to fight for the passage of Social Security. FDR knew that when it came to Social Security, he had two principal congressional allies, Robert Wagner in the Senate and David Lewis in the House. Despite having these allies, FDR knew that Social Security would be subject to the judgment of congressional committees, specifically the Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee. With the need for these committees' approvals in mind, Roosevelt insisted that the Social Security bill be named the Harrison-Doughton Bill, for Pat Harrison from the Senate Finance Committee and Robert Doughton from the Ways and Means Committee. Naming the bill after these men, even without their consent, was an example of FDR playing inside hardball because he knew that in doing so, it would give each of them an extra incentive to push the legislation through their respective committees. In fighting for the passage of Social Security, FDR also exercised his informal power to play outside hardball. Playing outside hardball means indirectly pressuring congressmen via the voter body. FDR used outside hardball through the nation at large with his fireside chats. In his April 1935 fireside chat, FDR told the nation that the Social Security program now pending before the Congress is a necessary part of the future unemployment policy of the government. Fireside chats helped create the public opinion that Social Security was good, and politicians knew they needed to satisfy public opinion if they wanted to be re-elected. In 1935, the Social Security bill was successfully shepherded through the committee process by Harrison and Doughton and through Congress by Wagner and Lewis. All that was left was for Roosevelt to sign the bill into law. When it came time for FDR to sign Social Security, he did so in a very elaborate and highly publicized manner to which media was invited. He distributed commemorative pens to 6 people. In doing so, he exercised another of his informal legislative powers.